Today, I want to go over the pros and cons of working as a freelance photographer in 2026. Now, I specifically say freelance because I want to separate it between people who work as a salaried photographer for large box stores like Walmart, Target, Staples, things like that. Because yes, there are people out there that work salaried 9-to-5 jobs as a photographer. Specifically, what I am talking about is freelance photographers. Those of us that work completely for ourselves, we are responsible for generating all of our own income. So today, we will go over what, in my opinion, are the pros and cons of being a freelance photographer. You have a flexible schedule. Being freelance and owning your own photography business, you get to choose your own schedule. Now, it's not quite like that, at least in my world. As a wedding photographer, I of course can pick and choose what dates it is that I want to book. But most of the time, I'm booking dates out 2 years in advance. So I really have to plan if I want to do something like a family vacation. Or if I just have a weekend where I don't have anything booked at all, that's just when I take my vacation times. But for the most part, during the week, I'm free to kind of make my own schedule. If I want to take a break and go do something else, I can. I can set up doctor's appointments. I can go to all of the kids' different events. I'm not set to a 9-to-5 schedule. The variety of the different things that you can photograph, that is a big pro to me. I know a lot of salaried photographers are shooting the same stuff day in and day out. Say you are a salaried photographer for a place like Staples. You're gonna be in the studio 9-to-5 shooting e-com photos. Product photo, sending it to white backdrop. Over and over and over. Every weekend, for the most part, I am shooting different venues. I'm always shooting with different couples, different vendors. I'm getting to meet all kinds of different people every weekend. There's different ideas, there's different stylings. And then I'm also doing senior photo shoots and engagement shoots. I'm constantly having different artistic visions, different creative visions, and getting to work with many different people. And that is something that I very much enjoy working as a freelancer. There's no cap on your earning potential. So what I mean by that is if you're working as a salaried photographer, then you are only gonna make the amount of money that you agreed to when you were hired on. Be it $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, whatever amount it is. When you're working as a freelancer, the sky's kind of the limit, to a point. Now, it can also be a con as well. A salary position, you know that you have a set amount of money that you're bringing home every paycheck. Whereas a freelancer, you don't know for sure when your next check is coming. Now, as a freelancer, you could potentially make a whole lot more money than somebody who's working a salaried position. But at the same time, you could make a whole lot less than somebody who's working a salaried position. Now for some of the cons. Inconsistent income is always gonna be a big con when it comes to working as a freelance photographer. Anybody who has ever worked as a freelancer knows that you don't know for sure what your income's gonna be or when that income's going to come in. Myself, I worked as a musician and a tattoo artist before I started working as a photographer. So I'm very familiar with inconsistent incomes and not knowing for sure when the next paydays are really coming in. Working as a freelancer, you have to know how to budget. Some months, you might bring in $10,000, $15,000. But the next 2 months, you might only bring in $1,000 or $2,000. So you have to know that you need to constantly be saving any of those larger checks or those months where maybe you've booked a whole bunch of weddings. January and February for me are really big months for booking weddings. I can generate $20,000 worth of income in a month or two's time. So I know that I have to stash that away to be able to get through the other months where I'm not generating as much income. It really is something that you have to force yourself as a freelancer to really focus on. The next con is the expense of everything. We all know as photographers, our gear is not cheap. And we are responsible for all of that gear. We're responsible for buying all of our camera bodies, all of our lenses, SD cards, everything that goes into it. When you work as a salaried photographer, that equipment is all provided. It's nothing that you have to worry about. If a camera goes down, the company is going to purchase another one. As a freelancer, you are responsible for all that. If you have a camera body go down, a lens break, a strobe go down, you are the one that's responsible for replacing that. And that also goes into the other expense of working as a freelancer. You need to have liability insurance. It's very wise to have equipment insurance. All of the expenses of all your different software. your editing softwares, your video softwares, your tax accountant softwares. There's a lot of different expenses that go into this, and you're responsible for all of that. Now, working as a freelancer, you're also kind of the jack of all trades when it comes to your business. What I mean by that is not only are you the photographer and the editor, you do the marketing, you do all the taxes and accounting. There's a lot of different things that you do. When you're working as a salaried photographer, for the most part, you're just going in, you're taking the photos that you are directed to take by the creative director. You might have some input in some of it, but for the most part, your job is just to take care of the technical aspects. As a freelancer, you are doing it all. I only spend about 10% of my time with a camera actually in my hands. The majority of the time is spent right here at my desk, either doing marketing, talking with clients, handling contracts, doing all of the editing, taking care of taxes. There's many different things that you have to do as a freelance photographer. I think something that a lot of people tend to forget is the taxes portion of it. When you work as a freelancer, you're responsible to pay all of your taxes. It usually comes out to about 35% of everything you have made throughout the year. And finally, the last con that I want to go over is the risk of burnout. I see it all the time. People take a hobby like photography and they turn it into a business. Now, something that you used to do to relieve stress becomes what causes you the stress. Now, for someone like me working as a wedding photographer, I can't just stop and not do it anymore. I have weddings that are booked out 2 years from today. I can't just stop right now if I wanted to. That is a big risk anytime you work as a freelance creative, not just in photography, but taking anything that you love and you have a passion for and turning it into a business. You run that risk of burning yourself out and just not feeling that much anymore. One of the ways that I battle that, though, is I'm always going out and I'm always shooting. I'm not just shooting weddings. I'll go out and I'll do street photography. Sometimes I get together with friends or family and we'll just do fun creative shoots. The stuff that I enjoy doing. The stuff that kept me coming back to photography. I think that's a very, very important thing to do as a freelance photographer, is to make sure that you are keeping that passion alive for photography. If you have yourself working so much just to be able to pay the bills, you're going to burn yourself out and you're not going to enjoy doing it anymore. And if you don't enjoy doing it, then what's the point? Hope you liked the video. Hit like and subscribe. As I've said on my other ones, I try to do these videos at least once a week, but with my schedule, it's very, very difficult to do. I think it's been 2 weeks since I put out the last one just because of the amount of weddings I have had lately. I am definitely in the busy season right now. But thanks a lot for watching.